Hey, everybody. So this week we talked a lot about hierarchy of design, or the principles that make your design work better than what it is when you first start off. Um, all of this assignment is based off of your powerful word, your what's in a word assignment. So for this one, I did the word love. So I just literally used my text tool and I typed, the word. I put my cap locks on and went ahead and typed this out. And so that's kind of what you see here. And then, the final thing is you highlight it and you can actually select, an appropriate font size and or not font size, but font type. So in this instance, I used impact on my font, and then I kind of increased the size of it. And then the final step that they wanted you to do right now, this is a singular object. So they also wanted you to do path, object to path, and then separate out. And what that causes is, if you'll notice, now each individual text piece is operating independently by itself. I can click on them, I can hold control and move it on the horizontal axis and make it more proximal, closer together, or further apart. And so that kind of impacts the overall design. So that's one of the first steps that you do. I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. So, secondly, you can begin to impact and manipulate the font itself. So in this instance, what I did is, once I have it set to path and separated out like I did up here, what I can do then is I can impact these individual nodes, and I can start to drag and adjust and use these handles. Let me zoom in here a little bit so you can see this better, and make the adjustments. And that's kind of what you started to do in setting up your powerful word in what's in a word. You started to kind of manipulate some of these elements. Okay, so I'm going to kind of move forward just for sake of expediency and not to make this video hopefully too long. So that's kind of what I've done over here, and you can kind of see that taking effect. And then I need some guidance of where to go with this. And so what I rely on is, I came back to this principle. I came back to color and contrast to draw attention. Um, and this principle, color and contrast to draw attention, it says, just as larger elements are perceived more important, smaller elements with the introduction of color can also be afforded contrast, and thereby creating a focal point or attention. And so, one, I adjust the font, and then two, I apply that principle. So I get the font in the position that I wanted, adjust the lettering of the font, but then the next step is I actually applied color as contrast as a hierarchical principle to my design. And then, kind of not really being satisfied with that, I also did some other things. I came back and I applied the principle of proximity, and I moved these letters, the E, the O, and the V, closer together to create sort of a unifying element. And so again, what I'm referencing is, let's see, um, that's size. That size impacts visibility. That's another one that I included, because ultimately I make my pink font much larger. But there's one in here for proximity and the relationship of how close we are putting our letters together. Right here, proximity suggests relationship. So here's kind of the deal. These are all individuals working in this office, but this guy over here is separate from these. And so the suggestion is, well, he must be independent or removed from this group. He must not be related to this group of office workers. But all of a sudden, if we put him in the cluster of this larger grouping, there seems to be a relationship to one another. So it's one of the basic principles of hierarchy of design and visual design is proximity suggests relationship. And so that's what I've done on this word here. I've created a relationship between the O, the V, the E to create a relationship. That's kind of what you want to do. I've also played off of concepts of negative space. I clipped, this shape into the top of the letters to create kind of visual interest and charge this negative space in between. And then finally, in this version of it, I dropped the E off of it entirely. I changed the size of the heart, and I decided to make the heart suggestive of the O. And again, I did those principles of path difference and clipped and cut this heart shape out of this larger, this was kind of the L shape. So several different versions of a design based off of hierarchical principles. And you can kind of see I'm even, working further to kind of play around with, well, how does color ultimately impact it? So multiple iterations, multiple revisions of a design using the hierarchical principles. That's kind of what you want to get up to in what's in a word. I know some of you have been, kind of struggling with it and, really didn't have a whole lot of thought about that. But do some of these steps, work some of these steps, and guaranteed it will improve your design. Talk to you soon.